You can now support Ghost Maps on Patreon. Simply look for We Are HANTU or click the link in the description. Ghost Maps, entry 106, North-South Highway, Malaysia. Ira's husband, Farhan, drops her off and waves at me before he drives home. He's got a late night work call with clients in the States, she says, then calls the drink stall auntie over. So I'll be telling you our story tonight. The pair had originally asked if I could meet them in Johor Bahru. They were up there having seafood at a restaurant that a friend had recommended to them. As much as I would have liked to join them, I had a few more interviews scheduled for this evening. So instead, Ira and I are here at this coffee shop in Woodlands after their dinner. Judging from the huge smile on her face, I can tell it was a good one. Farhan and I love driving around Malaysia and trying new makan places, she says, her eyes lighting up. It was one of the first things we bonded over when we started dating. It was also on one of these drives when Ira and Farhan experienced something far more out of the ordinary than a great meal. As we place our drink orders, I fish out my recorder. Then, as the auntie heads back to her stall, I ask Ira to start from the beginning. Ira and Farhan had met Stella and Trevor 5 years ago through some common friends. The two couples shared a love for exploring Malaysia for good food, so naturally they started taking drives up together. After that first trip though, I had a weird feeling about them, Ira tells me. I couldn't quite put my finger on why, so Farhan asked me to just give them a chance. Ira agreed, and the couples went for a few more drives. They found an excellent nasi kandar place in Perak, a couple of great mee soto spots in Malacca, and the best roti canai that Farhan ever had in a secluded part of Selangor. No matter how good the food was though, Ira still couldn't quite shake the unease she had around them. However, she soon started to suspect what was at the root of it. On top of being food lovers, Trevor and Stella were also urban explorers. The pair regularly visited old, abandoned buildings all across Malaysia to take photos for their shared Instagram account. And they didn't bring any kind of spiritual protection with them. When Ira asked them why they didn't take precautions, they just laughed. They said that they don't believe in that kind of stuff, she tells me. I shot Farhan a look there and then, but he shot me one back, a look that said we would talk about it later. Ira and Farhan had agreed to one last dinner with Trevor and Stella. They had already said yes before they learned about Trevor and Stella's relaxed attitude towards urban exploration. One last one. Farhan had promised me, and then, after that, we are suddenly too busy with work and family, Ira says. That last meal with Trevor and Stella would be at a rest stop along the North-South Highway, somewhere just past Johor. It was a nasi goreng place that Trevor's friend had suggested. Farhan and Ira arrived first, at around 8 p.m, and had gotten a table for all four of them. Trevor and Stella would be joining them after a day of exploring Ipoh. When they finally reached the rest area and parked their car, Ira's usual unease around the other couple seemed to grow. I knew that this time it was different, she says, pauses, then continues in a whisper. I just didn't realize how bad it would get. She told Farhan that as soon as they were done with dinner, they needed to go. None of the usual small talk or post-dinner copy. They would get in their car and leave immediately. Farhan was about to try placating Ira again, but then he saw the look in her eyes and just nodded. Ira quickly ordered a meal, even before Trevor and Stella could take their seats. They seemed oblivious to Ira's discomfort as their food arrived and tried to chat with Farhan. He kept up a weak pretense while trying to keep pace with Ira, who had begun to wolf down her nasi goreng. Before everyone knew it, Ira was done, with Farhan finishing up a short while after. Stella, now picking up on the tension in the air, tried to joke that they must have really loved their meal. Ira, however, had become so distressed that she didn't even bother to respond. Instead, she just stood up suddenly and headed over to their car. Farhan followed, making up some excuse about Ira feeling ill. He was so focused on the other couple that he didn't notice his wife had stopped suddenly in her tracks. "Farhan," she hissed as he bumped into her. "Do you see?" Farhan turned to follow her line of sight. She was looking right at Trevor and Stella's car. There was a woman dressed in a green kabaya sitting in their back seat, Ira says. Her hair was long and straight and went down past her chest. From where Ira and Farhan were standing, though, they couldn't see her face. Truth be told, they weren't entirely sure that this mysterious third person even had a head. Thankfully, their car wasn't parked anywhere near Trevor and Stella's. They ran to the vehicle, and after checking that there was no one inside, jumped in, started the engine, and drove back to Singapore. We didn't hear from them for a month after that, Ira says, regaining some composure. We thought that they were just giving us space, but Farhan received a call from Trevor one night while he and Ira were having dinner at home. They hadn't felt like trying out new makan places ever since that night, and had spent the last month eating in instead. Farhan let the phone ring for a couple of seconds, trying to think of a good excuse to turn the couple down if they invited them out. When he picked up the call, however, Trevor sounded different. Subdued and somber. They had gotten into a car accident, Ira says, on that night, the night of our last dinner with them. It was the strangest thing. Trevor had lost his sight temporarily. He told Farhan and Ira that it felt like a pair of hands from behind him had covered his eyes. The next thing he knew, their car had slammed into a lorry. He'd broken his right arm and a couple of ribs. Stella had some broken ribs too and a mild concussion. It could have been so much worse, Trevor said, more to himself than to Farhan and Ira. Before he ended the call, he asked them if they knew anyone who could offer them some protection. Farhan said he would put Trevor in touch with someone. Farhan and I resumed our food adventures a year later, but Trevor and Stella never joined us. Ira says, "We'll still see them every once in a while though, usually at some restaurant along Orchard Road instead." I ask if she and Farhan have seen anything else on their drives. She shakes her head. "I'm glad they're alright, Trevor and Stella. But unlike them, we never go looking for trouble," she says. She then adds, with a smile, "Just food for us. Thank you very much." If you want to discover more of Southeast Asia's other side, subscribe now and follow us on social media. You can also be one of our supporters on Patreon. Look for We Are HANTU or click the links in the description. Ghost Maps is a HANTU production, created by Kyle Ong and Wayne Ray, with art direction by Jolene Lim, and recorded on Audio Technica mics.